Hello everyone. Many of Caruana's attacks almost don't feel like attacks at all. Instead, he outplays his opponent strategically, and the final attack becomes merely a logical consequence of his previous powerful strategic play. This doesn't apply to the young Fabiano, who attacked as if he lived in the 19th century. So we're going to be looking at one of young Fabi's games when he was a kid. This game was played in 2008 at the Dresden Olympiad between Caruana and Berg. So we have e4, e6, d4, d5, knight c3, d takes e4. The Rubinstein French isn't exactly a ball of fire from black. On the other hand, it's one of the most solid ways to play the French. We have knight takes e4, and now knight to d7. Bishop d7 is the Fort Knox variation. Black reroutes the bad light squared bishop to c6 and tries to, to c6, and tries to swap it off for the f3 or f4, f3 or e4 knight. My apologies. Black often then switches to a Caruana structure with c7 to c6, with the remaining dark squared bishop on the opposite color to black's remaining pawns. So these two will be on light squares, while this is a dark squared bishop. Okay, so now we have knight to f3. Oops, sorry. Back to the regular game, knight to f3, knight g2, f6, and now knight takes f6 check. And a common question between amateurs is, isn't this move in violation of the principle? Avoid exchanges in a position where you have more space, because white has more space in the center, right? But this move, which is white's main line, does break the principle that I just mentioned. But the trouble is, if you don't exchange this knight, it loses time. Knight takes f6, bishop d3, and now c5. This move, which is also black's main line, is in violation of the principle, don't open the game when lagging in development. So why does black play it? Black wants to play the freeing Caruana-like c5 break, with the difference that in the Caruana, black first plays c7 to c6, then develops pieces, and only later plays c6 to c5. In the Rubinstein French, black ambitiously hopes to gain a tempo over the Caro two-move version of the break, at the risk of king safety. So we have d takes c5. And now another question. Isn't Caruana playing the opening a bit insipidly? The older we get, the more indispensable our accumulated experience in a line becomes. Caruana was a strong grandmaster in 2008, but he was also a kid at the time. I don't feel this is a particularly dangerous line for black. White dissolves the central tension at the cost of allowing black to play bishop takes c5 without a wasted move with the bishop. Also played is castles, then c takes d4, knight takes d4, and that's that line. Or another thing that's also played is bishop to e3, and then queen to c7. Both lines, in my opinion, are fine. Back to the main game. After bishop takes c5 is played, now comes queen e2, and both sides get castled. Another question, why doesn't white prepare to castle long? Caruana is playing very old mannish for a kid, which is strange since an overly optimistic attitude is an affliction of youth. He likes to attack, but only if it is done safely, from a strategic basis. Also playable is to try for opposite wings with bishop to d2. The trouble with that version is that black can play e5 alongside castle, and now e4, forking the bishop and knight. White plays bishop takes e4, and now queen to e7, and now rook h to e1. Queen to e6, bishop c3, knight takes e4, queen takes e4, and now bishop takes f2. And black has equalized. This game was played between Dovoris and Meyer in Jerusalem 2017. So now back to the regular game. We have b6. A fianchetto is the logical way for black to try and complete his development, with bishop to b7 coming. But we have bishop to g5, bishop to b7, and now rook a to d1, centralizing the rook with the tempo. If white could play again, white would play bishop takes h7, it's check, and now the rook is attacking the queen. So we have queen to c7. It's correct to break the pin and allow white to play bishop takes f6. If black were to play queen e7, then knight to e5, and then knight to g4 is in the air. Attacking, you know. Alright, so back to the game. Knight to e5 was played. There's no great profit in chopping this knight, because white doesn't really get an attack on the king side, and this simply allows black to maybe use the open g file, because after pawn takes, he can move his rook over, maybe double up rooks. But instead of knight e5 was played, if bishop takes f6, then g takes f6, and then bishop to e4. When black plays king h8, black stands pretty well in this position. Alright, let's go back to the game. Black played rook f to d8. And now white played a strange move. He played king h1. I'm not really sure the point of this move. It kind of feels like a waste of time. White's rather vague idea is to play f4 sometime in the future, which is something I don't believe he has the time to accomplish if black plays correctly, perfectly. Yeah. Rook f to e1 should have been the move he should have played. And now bishop e7. Sometimes a variation's mainline can actually be inaccurate. As in this case, I prefer a more strategically aggressive approach with bishop to d4. Sorry, give me a sec. Bishop to d4. There we go. Rook f to e1. This was played between Milde and Stoltz, a correspondence game in 2014. Here, black has the unplayed improvement. Queen takes e5. Queen takes e5. Bishop takes e5. Rook takes e5. And now bishop a6. This may look like a sacrifice, but you'll see that this bishop is pinned, and also it's pinned with checkmate. Rook to e3. And now rook a to c8. When white looks a little touch tangled, I prefer black in this position. Anyway, back to the main game. Rook d to e1. h6, kicking the bishop. Bishop h4. And now knight to d5. This is a new move played by Berg, who is a French specialist grandmaster. The threat is knight to f4, where he will then exchange with the bishop while gaining a tempo on the queen. So Caruana wants to take control over this f4 square so that the knight can't hop to it, while dodging a swap of this bishop right here. Rook in this position, rook to d4 is also fine for black. This was played in Mamedov versus Aliyev in Baku in 2003. This game continued f4. The game looks equal after rook a to d8. So back to the game. Bishop to g3. And now bishop to d6. This move takes away white's potential discovered attacks with the knight, because before this, you see how these are lined up, and the knight, if white could play again, I personally would play knight takes f7, because the knight's attacking the rook, and the bishop's attacking the queen. And those are two pieces that are attacked, so white will win some material. So, back to the game. We have queen e4. The idea is to swing the queen over to h4, position itself in front of the king. Knight to f6. Queen h4, as stated before. And now we have a blunder, knight d7. This is a mistake. The game remains balanced after rook a to c8. Alright, so let's continue with the knight d7 line. And I think this is a perfect time to say a quote from Saidus Lakadawala. How often do we aggravate a non-existent problem in order to solve it? In chess, a single move can drive us from the heights of contentment to the depths of despair. And I think this fits perfectly because this move just destroys black. We have knight takes f7, exclam. This once docile position suddenly erupts in violence. Now the black king's sense of invulnerability comes to an end. So he took, and now rook takes e6. Kid Karu decides to commune with the spirit of Paul Morphy. When our sacrifices go from singular to plural, it gets expensive. But here the follow-up rook sacrifice is completely justified. Karu channels Morphy, hoping for inspiration from the other side. Caruana clearly and callously disregards the norms of civilized warfare. Material is irrelevant. All that matters is black's king. The rook sacrifice is the deep point of the 19th move, queen h4. So, knight to c5. And how do you wrestle a problem which is bigger than your current defensive resources? Shock and disbelief give way to acceptance of black's new difficult circumstances. Other tries include king takes e6, where white just plays bishop c4 check. Bishop d5. Now comes queen e4 check. Bishop's pinned, beautiful move. King to f6. Now queen d4 check. Knight to e5. Bishop take d5. And with the dual threats of bishop takes a8 and f4, white's attack is super decisive. So what if black tried knight to e5? Well then, rook takes e5. Bishop takes e5. Queen h5 check. King to f8. Queen to... Sorry, my mistake. Now bishop takes e5. Queen to f7, trying to trade queens. And now queen to g4. And black is strategically lost, since for the exchange, white has 2 extra pawns. And the bishop pair. And a pretty much endless attack. One more variation I want to explore is bishop takes g3. Black loses it immediately. Rook e7, king to g8. And now rook takes g7 check. Beautiful move. King takes g7. Queen e7 check. King g8. Queen h7 check. King f8. Now f takes g3. Now king e8. And now bishop to g6 mate. Alright, so that was kind of a bloodbath. Let's return to the game. Played was rook takes d6. Rook takes d6. Queen f4 check. King to e7. Rook e1 check. And now king to d7. So black wants to get safety on the queen side. But white says, no you don't. Bishop b5 check. Bishop to c6. And now queen f5 check. White's pretty much like, oh no you don't. He's pretty much telling black that I sacrificed and this is your fault for playing this. I'm gonna punish you and I'm gonna win. The lines of communication are suddenly closed and black's king isn't allowed to go to c8 and b7. Very sad. Knight to e6. White's pieces wear belligerence as a second layer of skin. And now this is the final blow. Can you find the decisive combination that gives you a forced win? Pause the video now if you found it. Congratulations, you're good at doing combinations. And if you just want to enjoy the show, it's bishop takes d6, queen takes d6, and now rook takes e6. And now black is lost. And here, black resigned, giving Caruana the win. So, I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, leave a comment what your favorite move was, what you thought black should have done, and games that you want me to cover in the future. So, thank you very much, and I'll see you later.